In September of 1918, Allied troops were in full retreat from the Hindenburg Line. The Germans had just broken through their defenses, and thousands of men found themselves trapped in the ensuing chaos. But then one soldier noticed that amongst the enemy fire, there was a small bird flapping around. It was trying to get their attention, and when it flew close enough, he realized what it was. It was a pigeon with a message tied to its leg. This was no ordinary bird. Its name was Cher Ami, and it would go on to save more than 200 men that day. Cher Ami's story began 2 years earlier in 1916, when he was captured by French soldiers in Belgium. At the time, pigeons weren't exactly rare, but they knew that they could make use of this one. See, they noticed something special about him. When they tried to tie messages to his legs, he didn't panic like most birds would. He was calm and still. In fact, you could barely even tell that anything was there. Not only that, but the owner also noticed that he was strong and fast. He could fly up to 60 miles per hour, which was important because if a message needed to get somewhere fast, well, you couldn't afford to send someone else. When he was first brought to the front lines, he wasn't sent out alone. Instead, he had a partner, another pigeon named Colombo. They would fly back and forth between the front lines and the headquarters carrying important messages. If anything went wrong, at least they would have each other for support. But unfortunately, Colombo would soon be killed in an air raid, leaving Cher Ami all alone. That didn't stop him, though. He continued to do his job. That was until the Germans started attacking. For the next 2 years, Cher Ami flew dangerous missions across enemy territory, delivering messages that helped the Allies win multiple battles. But then came September 5, 1918. It would become known as Black Day. The German forces had finally broken through the Hindenburg Line, and thousands of Allied troops were forced to retreat. The problem was they didn't know where their reinforcements were or how to get them there. There were so many men and not enough messengers. That meant that many of these poor guys were left without any hope of rescue. This is where Cher Ami came in. His owner wrote a note explaining the situation and tied it to the pigeon's leg. He then let him loose and crossed his fingers that he made it. What happened next was nothing short of a miracle. Cher Ami flew straight to the headquarters, dodging bullets and anti-aircraft fire along the way. When he arrived, the general was astounded. Here was proof that there were still men on the battlefield who needed help. He immediately organized a rescue mission, and within hours, reinforcements had arrived. More than 200 men were saved that day, thanks to the quick actions of just one pigeon. The next day, the newspaper would report the incredible story of Cher Ami, praising his bravery. The general himself would later write a letter to the pigeon's owner, thanking him for his contribution to the war effort. It read in part, "It is impossible to overestimate the value of the services rendered by pigeons in the present war. The homing pigeons have taken the place of runners. They deliver important messages in a few hours, sometimes in a few minutes, and are of the greatest service to our troops." Cher Ami himself would be awarded the prestigious Croix de Guerre medal for his bravery. But pigeons haven't always been seen as heroes. In fact, during the American Revolution, they were actually used against the Patriots. It was 1776, and the British were in control of New York City. They were determined to put down this rebellion once and for all, but the Patriots kept getting in their way. They needed a way to counter them, something that would allow them to keep tabs on the enemy. And they got just what they were looking for: carrier pigeons. They were perfect for the job because they could fly back and forth between the city and the nearby British naval base on Long Island. Whenever the British received word of an upcoming attack, they could sound the alarm and bring in reinforcements. It worked so well that the Patriots had no idea what hit them. Suddenly, the British were always prepared, and they would beat the Patriots back every time. To make matters worse, the British also used the birds to spy on the Americans. This meant that General Washington was constantly second-guessing himself. Was Benedict Arnold really a traitor? Had the British intercepted his secret orders? Who could he trust? Things took a turn for the worse in 1777 when the British captured a French ship carrying military supplies to the Patriots. With this new intelligence, they were able to predict Washington's every move and thwart his plans. The British even went so far as to breed special homing pigeons specifically for the war effort. These birds were bigger and stronger than the common rock pigeon. They could fly faster and carry larger messages, meaning that the British could gather even more intelligence on the Patriots. Meanwhile, the Americans had no idea what was happening. Sure, they were winning some battles, but it seemed almost by accident. Every time they tried to take the offensive, the British were ready for them. It was frustrating and it was dangerous. The Patriots were running out of supplies and the British were closing in. They needed a way to break the British spy network and reclaim the element of surprise. But how? Then John Hanson came up with a brilliant plan. He would train his own army of carrier pigeons. That way they could match the British intelligence for intelligence. He set up a network of pigeon coops all across the countryside, each one filled with dozens of birds. They were trained to fly back and forth between the different coops, delivering messages in a matter of minutes. As soon as Hanson's network was up and running, the Patriots were able to get a handle on the British movements. Finally, they knew what was going on, and they could plan accordingly. For the next few years, the homing pigeons played a key role in the war effort. They delivered messages back and forth between the different Patriot commanders, allowing them to coordinate attacks and conserve their strength. But it wasn't easy. The British were also using their own homing pigeons to spy on the Patriots. That meant that Hanson and his team had to be constantly on the move, setting up new pigeon coops and training new birds. It was a risky game, but it was worth it, because in the end, the Patriots won. Of course, we all know that the United States won the Revolutionary War, but we should also give credit to those feathered friends who helped make it happen. After the war ended, most of the pigeons were set free, but a few were kept as pets by the soldiers who had cared for them, and that's a good thing too, because otherwise, who would have heard their stories? We may never know exactly how many lives they saved or how many battles they won, but one thing is for sure. Without these brave birds, the outcome of the war could have been very different. Now, check out World War I's most insane weapons or click this other video instead.